Hi there. My name is John McAlpin. I'm with the USA Today Network, New Jersey. And with me today is my colleague, Ashley Balcerzak. And we have as our guest today, United States Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. Good afternoon, Senator. And for you, we have questions from our readers and a lot of what's going on with the COVID-19 crisis in New Jersey, the federal response to that, and a lot of issues people are having, questions they're having, they need answers to. And with that, Senator, thanks for joining us. And I'd like to start very broadly with something about just how the virus is exposing a lot of the existing cracks in our society. Access to healthcare, health insurance tied to our jobs, unemployment. For the first time, millions of people are dealing with the unemployment system, going through that maze. And what's really catching a lot of people's attention is the racial disparity in not just in the outcome of the disease and morbidity and deaths like that, but also in the access to healthcare and in some of the what they call now underserved communities. So for you, broadly, to first start us, what does the federal government have right now for some of these people, some of these issues, and what do you see the ability for the government to do next once you get through the emergency and some of these really broad societal issues?
So first of all, thank you, and thank you for creating a platform to get people really needed information and for the value of this conversation. Look, we are an incredible society, but this disease, this virus, is exposing cracks that we have. America does not have healthcare for everyone. It's something that I've been championing and fighting for. But in a time like this, we begin to understand how if some communities don't have access to healthcare, it undermines the health and well-being of all communities. We are the only industrial nation that doesn't have paid sick leave or paid family leave. That actually is a danger to all of us. In fact, there's a lot of data out there already about how the flu every year spread more rapidly into more people because the most of our food service workers in America don't have paid sick leave. So they are forced to come to work even with the flu. And so this is one of the reasons why I've been calling, since I was the mayor of New Jersey's largest city, for more comprehensive fundamental rights for American workers that, frankly, most other countries already have. And what was encouraging to me about this bill that we just did was that for the first time in a long time, I found partners on the other side of the aisle in a lot of New Jersey priorities. But some of the things that I've been banging my head against the wall, suddenly we found Republicans who were seeing their communities and their states suffering, just like New Jersey, were willing to come to the table and allow us to move policy forward, at least for this emergency, that's going to help millions of people in New Jersey.
Right. As one person noted cruelly on Twitter, it's just you up against the wall now. Whereas before this, lots of other people were facing these things and really being exposed to it. But now we're all seeing it. On something else that we're seeing, Senator.
Sorry to interrupt. I didn't mention the racial disparities, which look, there's been horrible times in our history, grievous times, where we took those as moments to expand our moral imagination, to expand our circles of empathy and compassion. When 4 girls died in a bombing in Birmingham, we all came together, black, white, all of America demanded federal laws change. Go back another generation when women threw themselves out windows at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, and it revealed the horrible working conditions of Americans. The empathy grew in our nation so much that we demanded federal laws change about workers' conditions. This has got to be another time when we see the horrible disparities going on in terms of who's dying from this disease, exposing a lot of the challenges we still face as a nation about divisions between races, that we begin to understand that we are one nation under God. And so I'm grateful as a person who's been talking about these things, again, from the time you all sent me to the Senate. I'm now grateful that more people are lending their voices and a sense of urgency about getting this done. And I'm telling you, I am looking forward to getting change made in Washington in terms of healing these racial divides that exist in healthcare in our country.
One issue that we're talking that touches on two parts of that. The heartbreaking number of people dying in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. It's exposing two sections of two problematic areas. people who are dying alone in care facilities where they might not be able to afford these types of things, as well as workers who are being, some of them, barely above minimum wage, being shuttled back and forth to some of these long-term care facilities. We're not talking about nurses, but the workers, the staff and others who are forced to go to these things and work multiple jobs. They might be a vector for exposing people. What's the federal government doing? Any thoughts to protect more protection for workers in the long-term care nursing homes, as well as what's being done for inspections and any added relief to some of these care facilities, particularly ones in North Jersey, where we're seeing horror stories of dozens and dozens of residents dying each day?
So a couple things. I'm finding a lot of partners on both sides of the aisle on the racial disparities. For example, Senator Warren and I have worked together to call on the government first collect the data on the workers in our nation. And I've now talked to workers in New Jersey who work in federal buildings, all the way to workers that work in New Jersey in our Amazon warehouses, and painful stories, gut-wrenching stories about what they're going through right now in terms of lacking protection, lacking even if they have symptoms and want to stay home and do the right thing, to be cut off from their salaries and that therefore endangering their families. So there's a crisis amongst workers. I've been actively calling on a lot of different companies, from our federal government to Amazon, to do the right thing, because these now essential workers, if they're so valuable in our society, we should be treating them with basic dignity, excuse me, and giving them the protections that they need, which is unbelievable. Just today, we had a funeral for a union worker, 1199, who died of COVID because they were in one of those essential jobs in a nursing home. And so this is a real crisis for our frontline workers. Now, the second thing you alluded to there should be an outrage to all New Jerseyans. What went on in Sussex County, where they just discovered in a nursing home, I think 15 plus, maybe 17 bodies that were just being sort of not reported, piled down, a deep assault to the dignity and the humanity of those people who passed, a lack of sharing information with even their family members, who must have been assuming that they were okay. And so from the workers, losing a nursing home worker in our state, to and others, nursing home workers who have been getting sick, doing that important frontline work, should be treated with dignity, should be treated with everything necessary to protect them and their families, and also the vulnerable populations themselves. We are not doing what we need to be doing. And so, again, on my role, not only here in the state, but fighting in Washington, we need to have basic worker protections in this country, in pandemics and not. We need to be making sure that we're providing the safety protection equipment. This is why we fought hard and thankfully won in this bill. Significant money for New Jersey for getting PPE. We have supply chain problems right now that we've got to solve in this country. We shouldn't have governors bidding against each other. We should have a federal coordination going on from the administration. But this is a everyday urgency, and it can't stop when this crisis is over. We can't suddenly forget about the nursing home workers, the frontline people who are getting food through our supermarkets, and so many other people we've discovered and call essential right now. We've got to treat them that way by changing some of the basic rights they have as workers in America, especially the richest nation on the planet Earth is so far behind other Western developed nations in terms of the way it's treating its workers with the basics.
Many of the questions we get from readers revolve around health insurance right now. One reader writes that she's unemployed because of the virus. She's going to lose her health insurance because it's attached to her job. And aside from COBRA, which in her words is very, very expensive, prohibitive for her, what options are there for people who are unemployed and soon to be without health insurance? What can they do? Where should they go?
So I want to say first and foremost that this is an area where I may have expressed, you want to try to act with civility, but this is one area where I have been very demanding of this administration, very angry about it, because I hear from people like this worker who's questioning a lot, there is a easy way to solve this problem is by the President of the United States opening the enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act again. Have an emergency special enrollment. I have led this fight and led this call, and this can't be politics of this being so-called Obamacare, and therefore I'm not going to do that. This is a crisis. There are so many Americans losing their jobs, falling into a hole. COBRA is very expensive. And it's a simple fix to this by allowing New Jersey to open its open enrollment period so that people can afford, enroll in the Affordable Care Act, which has federal subsidies for people that can't afford it. So I'm very upset right now that this simple fix in a global crisis is not being done. I want to say that we were able to win for our state a lot of funding for federally qualified health centers, of which New Jersey, every county has access to those. So there are other ways to get sort of basic health care in our state. And if you have concerns or questions about that, please call my office. But this is something I am so angry about because the fix to this one is so easy and it can't get tied up in the politics over the Affordable Care Act. Right now, there are many people whose lives and who don't even know if they get COVID, how they're going to pay for the long-time related expenses. And so we just got to change this and open this special enrollment period.
Got it. Another pressing question for people is student loan debt. Not just the weight of the debt itself, but now many of them are unemployed or underemployed, people that were just struggling to pay their loans to begin with. What can be done? I know that there's programs have waived the interest payments on some loans, but the loans themselves, the principal still has to be paid back. Any thoughts on that for people?
Yeah, well, so I just want to emphasize that good news in terms of us winning in this bill, the forbearance for this all the way until September. So if you have a student loan, and I'm somebody that carried a lot of student loans myself, I knew that fear of every month trying to make that payment. But for federally backed student loans, you have a complete forbearance until September, really through September. So just understand that. And for the private loan program, though, that's a hole and that's a problem. And you should call your loan provider to find out what they're doing to make allowances for this crisis. But I want folks in New Jersey to know that one of the things that I'm fighting for in this next COVID package is really there's already talk in Washington about doing another aid package. And this is something me and I've teamed up with some other really great senators, including Todd Menendez, our other New Jersey senator, to try to do two things. One, get private loans in the same kind of forbearance. But then two, I want to see outright loan forgiveness to lower the burden overall. Because remember, this economic distress period we're in is not going to end when the immediate health crisis ends. It's going to go for a long time. And I want to make sure that as much as possible, I can win relief, economic relief for New Jerseyans. One of the reasons why we had a big standoff on the Senate floor over this bill, and I hope you all understand that when you see a standoff like that, it wasn't for some political reasons. For a lot of us, I was not going to support a bill that didn't do a lot of things to get more money in the hands of New Jerseyans, expanding unemployment benefits, cash payments was a fight that I was leading in the Senate. These are the kind of things that we have to be focused on because this economic downturn could last well into 2021, and a lot of families are struggling. I went through the fight through the recession of 08, 09, especially in vulnerable communities. Then I was a mayor of Newark, New Jersey, where we lost 25% of our municipal workforce, where unemployment rates in certain pockets of New Jersey go up into depression-like levels.
Already, yeah.
Already, right. And we can't allow that to happen without a more robust federal response. And so that's what I'm fighting for. Unprecedented, massive challenges necessitate unprecedented, massive response.
Right. And that brings us to some questions that my colleague Ashley has about the next response and where we go from here, Ashley.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so that was kind of our next question. Can you tell us the things that you are most excited for if there is another stimulus package? Would there be another round of checks? And would those be expanded for people who maybe didn't get it this time around, like college students?
Well, excited is maybe one word, but I'm very strategic. The reason why, as your senator for just 6 years, I've been able to get everything from massive criminal justice reform bills passed to even here in New Jersey saving funding for some of our traumatic brain injury is because I work on both sides of the aisle. And so already I spent hours today actually strategizing with fellow senators, with other influencers about how I could leverage the position that New Jersey gave me the honor to have to deliver as much as I can for the state of New Jersey. And so let me give you some of my priorities so you understand what they are. Number one is I want more cash payments. I think the $1,200 plus $500 per child going to 80% of New Jerseyans is a great win, but it's a one-time win, and I want to see more cash payments. Number two is I want to get more funding for state and local governments. I want to make sure that our cities, towns, in every one of our counties, they're going through a financial free fall right now as revenues coming into cities and counties and states is going down and demands on services is going up. I cannot let, I'm going to do everything to prevent layoffs of firefighters, police officers. So that's municipal workers. I've seen that before as a local mayor in the last recession. We got to prevent that. So a lot of aid for cities. Our small businesses in New Jersey are really in crisis. And the PPP program that a lot of people may have heard about, the program, the Paycheck Protection Program, which is loans to small businesses that can turn into grants if they hold on to their workers. That program has now been oversubscribed, and we've got to put more money into that, as well as other streams of funding that specifically are helping some businesses in our state that have been left out of the program. And I've been doing just grassroots work trying to help as many businesses and nonprofits in our state. So that's a third priority, expanding loan and grant programs to a lot of our businesses. I know a lot of New Jerseyans aren't thinking about this because it's a long way away, but we do have an election in our state, and we do not have the resources we need to ramp up our vote by mail and other things to protect every New Jerseyan who wants to go to vote. That's another priority. I need to get more money to our hospitals, medical providers. That's something that I want to do. A lot of our public schools in New Jersey and our teachers, they're hurting. We have over $300 million that we were able to win for public schools, another over $300 million for colleges, universities as well. But we need more money for things like learning from home, and other kind of digital fixes is something else that's a big priority for me as well. So those are some of the priorities that I'm going to be fighting for in this next bill. And I'm already finding creative ways to find allies on the other side of the aisle. And one example I'll give you is one of the biggest bipartisan efforts going on right now to fix sort of small business programs in our state around the country. I'm actually partnering with a Republican from Montana is to try to get our state and local lenders. Our state of New Jersey has a very special program that it helps to administer that was oversubscribed. Tens of thousands of businesses applied for a very limited amount of money. I want to get money to those because they have a better way of lending to a lot of our small businesses. And the second thing I want to tell you that I've got another major bipartisan effort going on with Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa is unfortunately we've lost first responders in the state of New Jersey. We've seen firefighter, police, EMS workers fall. And right now, I want to make sure that when those workers fall, in order for them to get their family to get benefits, their children, it's not necessarily a line of duty death. I want to make sure that it's a presumption that any first responder that's dying in the of COVID, that it was a line of duty death, so that we can make sure that those New Jerseyans who've already fallen, and God forbid any more fall, but should they fall, I want to make sure that we honor them as the heroes they are, with full benefits as if they died in the line of duty, like a firefighter at a fire or a police officer from a gunshot wound on duty. And that's another bipartisan effort. Remember, this should not be a politically divisive time. I went down as a senator to work in a bipartisan way. It's how I've got a lot of things done. But right now, that's how I'm going to deliver for our state.
Thank you very much. One of our questions that I get quite a few emails about every day is about unemployment. Is there any look at expanding that further, or at least helping to fix our state system more? So many people are trying to call in, get online, and they're just facing busy signals or being kicked off. Is there anything that we can do more there?
I'm so glad that you asked this question, because it is the #1 source of calls to my office right now. We analyze it all. The biggest question we get to my Senate office is on unemployment insurance. And so I want to say a few things about how the program has increased, and a lot of people don't realize they're eligible. So #1, we increased the normal eligibility. If you are self-employed, if you are a part-time worker, if you're a gig economy worker, whether it's somebody who was laid off who does TaskRabbit as an example, or Lyft or Uber, all of those folks are now eligible for unemployment insurance. They were not before. And so that's a very good thing. #2 is we increased the amount of payments that you can get by another $600, which will give a large portion of New Jerseyans full paycheck replacement, and it's retroactive. So I've already talked to some very happy New Jerseyans who've gotten, back checks now, that extra $600 on top of what they had already received going back to January. And then finally, we were able to extend the duration as well. That was part of the standoff that we made, was to extend unemployment duration for now about 4 months now. And so all of that is good. Now, I want you to know what I'm going to fight for is even longer extension of unemployment insurance, given that the presumption by most economists now is that this recession will last a very long time. But the most frustrating thing going on for a lot of New Jerseyans is that they can't get through. They're having a hard time filing. And so this is what I want to tell you, because the governor has been, a partner and a leader. He's fighting fronts on all different sides. I watch him closely to see how his team is trying to respond to crises all over our state. And so what they're doing right now is they're training new people to give more capacity in the unemployment insurance offices around our state, New Jersey Department of Labor. They're bringing in more laptops for people to actually do that work from home now as well. So the governor's trying to take a lot of steps to increase capacity, because as you saw from the labor statistics today, another 5+ million Americans applying for unemployment insurance. We have never seen a surge like this, going back way beyond the Great Recession. In my lifetime, there's never been a surge on our unemployment offices. So all hands are on deck right now to increase capacity for people. Please keep calling. Please keep be as patient as you can. And remember, as frustrated as you might feel, you will get retroactive benefits if you can get through as well. So capacity is expanding. Keep calling. And for all these questions, because right now we have on my website a whole coronavirus downloadable resource guide. A lot of things we won't cover on this platform. It's now been downloaded thousands and thousands of times, I think tens of thousands of times. It's a really good resource at booker.senate.gov/coronavirus. And so that you can get more resources there. But I'm excited to tell you, one, that those checks will be backdated. Should you miss your first, you had a week that's gone by without being able to get through. And then two, I know your senators, both Menendez and myself, are going to be going down to try to fight for even more duration of those benefits when we get back into session for this next, God willing, this next coronavirus package.
Thank you. We have a reader question in the comments. What, if any, protections or help are being given to postal workers who are struggling because of COVID-19?
Yeah, I'm. This is sort of my command center. If you all see where I'm around here, and I'm just in Newark, New Jersey, at my home, and I tell you, I've been running to my little balcony that overlooks, talking to postal workers, just thanking them, because they are frontline workers. But they have to have their proper protections. And They have to have the sort of work conditions that benefit them because they go home to their families. And if they're not protected, they might have a parent living with them or a spouse with a underlying condition. And so this is an urgency that I find with all government workers who are needed to work right now, that we're not doing enough. I want to say something else about the postal workers, and I hope those that are listening to me understand that the post office is running a massive deficit right now in terms of billions of dollars. And there are a lot of people that are lawmakers that think that it's just not a necessary service, or we could privatize it or severely cut it back. I'm somebody that is 1,000% against that. If you call yourself a constitutionalist, the Postal Service is mentioned in the Constitution, and we've got to protect those workers, those jobs, and the vital service that they do. I've been calling for more funding to the Postal Service, not only for things like personal protective equipment, but to make sure that vital service, the Postal Service, remains a part of our culture like it has been going back centuries.
Yeah, one thing, Senator, I don't think people understand that with the Postal Service, that is the only organization, public or private, in America that is required to book 75 years of pension obligations. And that's one of the reasons they can claim that it's struggling financially, because it is people use it, it works, it delivers mail to every rural, urban, where every part of America gets this. But because of this one unique structure, it's being almost forced out of business. So I just don't.
Right, and I'm so grateful you said that. That gets a little into the weeds, but the restrictions being put on the Postal Service, our government here in New Jersey doesn't abide by those restrictions. I mean, it is. There are a lot of things being done, including a lot of the revenue that they make, not appropriately, in my opinion, that they're not allowed to benefit from that revenue. They've had their fiscal hands handcuffed, and I love what you said, because we often don't think about that. If you I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey, up in Bergen County. I live now in a city in Essex County. But in rural areas, there are a lot of folks that wouldn't even bother to deliver with the kind of frequency or at the cost that we're running this Postal Service for. So it is one of the more democratic aspects of our society in terms of that stamp will get you a mail to Newark, New Jersey, or any corner of Salem County that you want to go to.
Got it. Senator, thank you again. Is there anything that you want to leave people with today? Any one thing they need to know from you before we go?
Yeah, I love New Jersey. And I want you to know it's not just because, our singers have the best nickname, from the chairman of the board to the Count to the Queen Latifah. No, I can tell you all the reasons, the fun reasons I love my state. But I want to tell you, really, I love my state because we rise through the fight. I'm here, in fact, in New Jersey, because a whole bunch of people got together when they were seeing my family get denied housing back in the 60s. They were being turned away. Neighbors came out in that community, literally pretended to be my parents, a white couple proposing as them in order to buy the house I grew up in. We respond to crisis. We are there for each other. That's the story of New Jersey. It's the grit and the greatness, from Alice Paul to Paul Robeson. We are a state that has had heroes, everyday citizens who rise to the occasion. From 9/11, when hundreds and hundreds of New Jerseyans, fire departments, volunteer fire departments, float over to New York to stand and fight, all the way to Hurricane Sandy, where I was mayor of Newark then, and I saw acts of grace and kindness extended to people. I just want everyone to know that's why I love New Jersey. That's why this state is great, because we are Jersey strong. Well, this is the number one crisis in America that we will have seen in the last 50, 60 years, going back to the Great Depression or the World War. This is our generation's great calling. And I just want to ask everybody to rise to this occasion. Number one, do the responsible thing by staying home, by socially distancing. That's an act of patriotism in and of itself. But if you have the capacity in our state to help other people, please do it. Our food banks are getting 100, 200, 300% more demand. They need help. There are people who are isolated and alone that need folks to reach out. My staff is calling people up, sometimes just to have conversation. Delivering meals to people that we know, using these meal delivery services. There are so many ways to do acts of kindness and grace, and we need them right now. So this is a time to stand together, to work together. Even though we're socially isolated, we can still stand together. Even though we're socially distanced, we can still reach out. That's going to distinguish us in this crisis. That's going to help us to endure. And that gives me unconquerable confidence that we shall overcome this crisis and get through it together.
Senator, thank you very much. And hopefully we can do this again soon. We get a lot of questions from readers. People are very engaged and they're scared and they're looking for help. And again, thank you for joining us on the USA Today Network New Jersey today. On behalf of our colleagues here, thank you, Senator.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. God bless everybody. Stay safe, please.
Thanks, man. And with that, we invite you to join us again on Friday at 11:15 a.m. when we'll be speaking to New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, taking your questions and concerns and bringing them with him. Again, on behalf of the USA Today Network, thank you.